Hey everybody, welcome back to the Quest for the Bestest from Backlog Banner. I'm your host this evening, Timo Nelson. I'm joined by Tucker Hazel, Abram Buhner, and Tanner Dykstra. And today we are talking about the 1938 film You Can't Take It With You, a Frank Capra movie with a pretty star-studded cast. Lionel Barrymore, Jimmy Stewart as a really young, dapper
version of himself.
Yeah, it's he plays the Jimmy Stewart character. He has the Jimmy Stewart vibes. And it's a very interesting movie that Tucker can't wait to talk about. I can't wait to talk about. We're gonna have a good time. But first,
I could wait.
Tanner, he'd be okay holding off for another week on this one. But
yeah.
the majority rules, we must go ahead. Last week, we talked about The Great Ziegfeld from 2 years earlier. 1936 was an interesting movie, and I think we had a very intelligent and good discussion about it. And sadly, it ended up dead last, 23rd out of 23rd on the list.
How satisfying.
Yeah, wouldn't really recommend that one, and that's what we kind of came to the conclusion about when we were talking about it. But
in a twist of fate, I think we have a movie that we all enjoyed today, and it's going to be a fantastic discussion.
You Can't Take It With You is a film based on a play. I forget who wrote the play, but it is I'd say a very moving movie. I'd say it touched my cold dead heart as it neared the end. It was a moving picture, you might say. And in fact, this movie did win the Best Moving Picture Award at the Oscars in 1939. So with that, I hand it off to someone else because my brain is fast running out of ideas of things to say.
Oh boy!
Here's the first thing I want to say.
All right.
I was like, hey, there's the guy from the Grand Hotel when Lionel Barrymore came on screen. So I will say, first off, the top of the show here, Quest for the Bestest has really given me a good classical Hollywood, crash course. So it's very cool to start to see faces I recognized and get a little bit more into these films. So personally, I really enjoyed the film through that lens. I also just thought it was pretty compelling. I have some issues with it. I think the beginning is not the most compelling. I think it really ramps up. It gains a lot of momentum as the film progresses. But no, on the whole, I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed getting a little bit more into 30s Hollywood. Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very fun time. A great ensemble cast. Tucker, you love ensemble casts. You want to tell us about who we were watching play and what characters we've got in this film?
Okay, I've got them all written down on the back of this page. You got Jean Arthur and James Stewart as the main characters, essentially, of the film. Tony Kirby and Alice Sycamore. I reversed them, but I think you can place them together, who's who. Lionel Barrymore as Grandpa Martin Vanderhoff. We got Edward Arnold as Anthony P. Kirby, who, by the way, I think did an absolutely fantastic job. That chair sequence, top tier. That gag is great. It gives him a lot of personality. I mean, I just think it's a fun acting moment for him. We've got Misha Auer as Boris Kolenkov, Ann Miller as Essie Carmichael, and her husband Ed Carmichael, played by Dub Taylor, Spring Byington as Penny Sycamore, and Donald Meek as Mr. Poppins, and a litany of other smaller roles. But I think what this movie does is it balances this gigantic cast of incredibly memorable characters and makes them all feel unique, all feel important. They all have their own goals and wants and relationships, and just throughout, you're able to keep it so straight in your mind because everyone has their role and it all just falls into place so well. I mean, I've rattled off, 10 actors there?
And there's more.
And I'm sure as I was going through them, you guys were like, okay, I know who that is. I know what they sound like. I know what they look like. I know what they enjoy in their life. I know what their relationship is to everyone else. And I think that's a really good sign of a movie that is able to balance an ensemble cast in the best way.
And so the general conceit of the film is that the two main characters, Jimmy Stewart and
Jean Arthur.
Jimmy Stewart and Jean Arthur fall in love. Jean Arthur is Jimmy Stewart's stenographer. Jimmy Stewart is the son of the banking magnate A.P. Kirby, who is going to take over some business and form the largest monopoly in the country when he gets 12 blocks of land in New York. But the one property that won't sell to him is owned by Grandpa, played by Lionel Barrymore, who hosts in his house this mélange, this big, giant, extended, informal family of quirky, weird characters. And that's where the ensemble comes from. And he's not going to sell. But in the family is Jean Arthur's character. And so there's this conflict of interest between the love and the business and, what does money mean and all these very interesting themes, actually, that the film ends up exploring and playing through as it goes on. And it's a funny movie.
It is funny, yeah.
And it is a funny movie.
It's a comedy, if you will.
Yeah. I asked Tucker about this. This is an interesting little thing. But, what are the very few comedies to win Best Picture? I can't really name a lot of basically straight up comedies that have won Best Picture. And it really shows in this. The comedy writing, the situations are not only, there's a fair share of heartfelt moments, but there's also a fair share of moments that made me laugh out loud, which, I have a cold, cynical, dead heart, so that's not a very common occurrence.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were multiple moments, Abram, I'll get to you in a second, about where, I just like, oh, what, this sequence, I know that this other thing is going on in the background or whatever, but then this thing is happening, we're being shown it, and those would come together, just be like, that's ridiculous and very funny. And I laughed out loud quite a lot while watching this film.
Yes.
So I don't think I laughed out loud once watching the film. For me, so that was definitely a subjective point, because there's certainly a disconnect between how the jokes landed and the fact that it's a very clever movie. From very early on, you can see, okay, I think I know where this is going. And then the film consistently takes left turns that keeps the plot engaging while writing these characters into, admittedly, really clever situational comedy. I love the wrestling gag, I think, is really funny, and the way it pays off then at the end of the film. So it's very smartly written. I just don't know if this is the type of humor that really gets me chuckling, But I can appreciate, from the construction standpoint, how the script writes these characters together in very compelling ways.
One thing I think I enjoyed most about its sense of comedy is that it breaks the conventional comedy of that time. Like, even if it's a drama with a little bit of comedy elements, those usually just take themselves seriously, and the comedy moments are in universe trying to tell a joke. But this skips all of that and just goes straight to not taking itself seriously, and everyone is just trying to have a good time, and it's intended to make you feel closer to these characters through humorous moments. And I think that the fact that it doesn't take itself seriously is one of its strongest suits, because it allows the characters to be a lot more engaging and endearing than I think a lot of comedies from the era had.
And you're right about the characters being engaging and endearing, and they're all memorable. I mean, when you rattled off that list, I was like, oh, like the father and the dudes who make fireworks in the basement, and they're always just lighting the fireworks off inside. And how, that's going to happen. And every time that I was like, oh, it'd be really funny if the fireworks went off right now. The fireworks would go off, and then I'd be like, haha, that was funny, and I laughed.
And then,
classic.
of course, the sign would fall off the post and someone would put it back up. Yeah.
I mean, there's just solid comedy writing, or solidity writing, as I was about to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the recurring gags like that. I feel like we just keep restating this, but yeah, all the side characters are just perfect. Like, you have, I think my personal favorite, what is it, Kalachov, the Russian?
Kalinkov.
Excuse, I think he was my personal favorite, because he was just this big body presence that would show up every so often, and he'd yell something in his admittedly poorly done but comedic effect Russian
Played
accent.
by a Russian actor.
Real? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well,
Hey, Hollywood,
all right.
you done some good
I looked it up last night. Misha Auer, actual Russian actor, actual real life Russian person.
Where are
crazy
you?
stuff.
Where are you from? Omsk.
Yeah. Great moment. Great
Where?
moment.
Omsk. Oh, speaking of that, I just wanted to say I had the whole misunderstanding about a communist revolution plot point pegged from the very beginning, where they were doing like, oh, we'll make it a red flag, and we'll say the revolution is coming, or the big change is coming. I'm like, oh, this is the 1930s, we have a Russian character, there's going to be some misunderstanding about them spreading propaganda about a communist revolution in New York City.
And it didn't help that they also had lots of explosives in their basement.
Oh, yeah.
Without license, which
Yes.
is the one thing in the movie that they genuinely were doing wrong. And I think that, okay, we're going to tie back, we're bouncing all over, but I think the fact that it's able to tie all these comedic moments back into a serious story with genuine themes of capitalism and classism and things like that
All
in
the
the background.
isms.
Yeah, and then, of course,
isms.
there's an ism bit, so I'm kind of playing into the movie's, own sense of humor. But they tie that back around into this moment in the courtroom where everyone has gone to jail. They're all the conflicts are coming to a head, and Grandpa's like, oh yeah, well we were making fireworks in the basement without a license. Oops, we shouldn't have done that. And it ties it back around to in this justice system and the sense of community and family and what's right, what's wrong, like different perspectives. And I think that was kind of where I thought the movie peaked, because it was tying in all the comedy and the heart and the themes into one moment. Unfortunately, I have to say, from my point of view, I know Abram said that the beginning of this movie sort of was a little bit slow to him. I thought the ending sequence of this movie after they get out of the jail was my least favorite part. I think it wrapped up things a little bit too conveniently. It was jumping around time-wise a little bit too much, and it really just broke the pacing for me. And it's I gotta say, it's the only thing holding this back from a 5-star movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. I think it really, like you said, after they get out of the jail, I think that courtroom scene is where it really peaks, because it kind of subverts your expectations there, obviously, because there's still runtime left in the movie is the reason for that. But AP Kirby, he says, no, I'll pay the fine that they got indebted upon themselves for doing this fireworks thing. And then Grandpa's like, no. Or no, does he say no? Who says no? Is his
Well, they all say no. They don't want
it's
to.
It's just somebody who's in watching. They're like, no, you're not going to pay. We're all going to pay, and then they start grabbing money.
That is a really great moment, and I really love that. He's like, because at that moment, AP Kirby really hadn't come into his own in actually respecting them in full yet, so it felt more like pitiful charity and not like an actual sense of community, friend to friend thing, which is a theme that was tied together in this film.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about the comedy and the stuff. You mentioned it, we got the laughs. Now let's talk about the heart and soul of this film and the themes and where it works so well. And I'd want to hear Abram's thoughts on the thematic material, because he is our average theme enjoyer of the group.
I do enjoy a good theme, and I think that this film finds a great balance between overtly telling you what you're supposed to take away from the film, but leaving enough space to project your own life onto these characters.
Sure.
And project what's that, like Grandpa, what's that elevator that you don't want to have to get on one more time? You want to just come back down from, you know? I think the film, it feels pretty universal, and because of that, I found it pretty resonant and interesting, thinking about, we all work at something, right? And this sort of the sort of conflict between this utopian view of the world that Grandpa has and the realities of it with Kirby or with the IRS collector. There's a lot of interesting interplay there where you can pretty much put yourself in that situation, and I just think those tensions are very interesting and well played out.
Yeah, so I think that it's the fact that this movie has so many themes. Like Abram was saying, you can kind of project yourself onto one or the other, and there are some that are very explicitly stated. I think the themes of capitalism through AP Kirby and his board being like really money grubbing, and the guy with the twitch on his eye that just will do anything to get Grandpa to sell. So those themes of capitalism are certainly in there, and there's, as I said earlier, classism, like social norms. You get the dichotomy between the Kirbys and the Vanderhoffs, who live their lives very differently, and they're trying their best to respect one another and meet in the middle. But, if a firework goes off or if someone slips, the whole thing's thrown off balance and everything goes haywire. But then you also have this pervasive theme, which I think is what really carries the movie, is the theme of happiness, of self-fulfillment, of doing what you enjoy, and that being what fuels you in life. And each of these characters has abandoned what they were doing to really do what they want. And that's something you don't really see in movies, because you usually get people who are shoehorned into their life and they have to learn to deal with it. But what if you didn't have to deal with it? What if you could just be happy? What if you could just do what you wanted and not care what others think of you? But then what if they come into your life and have to think about you? What if you're shoehorned in this situation? I think there's a very unique dichotomy there that I think is what gives this movie the heart that it has, and why it resonated with me so much. Is I like comedies a lot, but when it's able to turn that comedy into something that really can bring in conflict, can bring in interesting themes, can make you connect to the characters more, I don't know, it just made me think. And this is my second time watching it, and I was able to enjoy it thematically even a lot more the second time around.
If I may,
yes,
I want to bring up the 2020 film Soul, if I can, in relation to this film. And because this is really, it's very similar in the fact that Soul is telling the audience that while Tucker is right, in a lot of movies you see these characters doing big bombastic things with their lives, and we're supposed to find that inspirational. But this film, and Soul as well, tells the audience you don't have to do great things to live a great life. You can find the little things that you enjoy doing, even if it is monotonous to other people. If that's what gives your life fulfillment, that's what makes you happy, and that's what you should do. And that theme really juxtaposes itself nicely with the Kirbys and this idea of industrialization and work. That AP Kirby is trying to force his son Tony into. And there's a scene towards the end of the film that I really resonated with personally and emotionally, where Tony and his father are sitting down to talk, and Tony basically just comes clean to his father. He's like, "Listen, I don't care about any of this. I know that you've spent your life building up this empire, and you have big business deals in the works. That's not who I am. Who I am is the family that you rejected however many days ago, and you look down on them, and I see myself, wanting to resonate with them the same way that, was it Mr. Poppins?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Poppins is a great character because he creates an entry point for the viewers.
Yeah, the same way Mr. Poppins did at the beginning of the film, and just that conversation, I had a lot of resonance with, filling Tony's shoes in that scene.
And I think that's a great scene to bring up because I like what both of you guys are saying about this positive thematic element. But what I like about this film is the way that it weighs it back down with the realities that I was talking about, like with the income taxes, or with this tension where we want to be together, but our families just have such dichotomous views of the world that we've got these conflicts here. I think that's what makes this so effective, because it doesn't just feel idealistic. It feels realistic. It feels like there is a way to chase this life you want, but it is going to be contextualized with all these problems around it. So it's that sort of realism juxtaposed against all the other elements of the film, the comedic elements, the just clever situational elements, that I think really makes this film work, and why I enjoyed it as much as I did.
Sure.
Yeah. All you guys have said all that I can think about the themes. I mean, they are excellent, and they even, especially like right now, I mean, where I am in my life, I'm in college trying to figure out what I want to do. I mean, I want to make movies and whatnot, but also like trying to figure out what really makes me happy and all that kind of stuff. And so the core theme of the film is not only presented very well, but we talk about the personal connection, and this film has got it in spades. I do want to note that I agree, Abram. I think the pacing is weird at points. I think the beginning is slow and the end is slow. It's got a great second act, which is the hardest part of writing, is to really write that second act. So it's just moving and flowing, and you're just all involved. But the beginning didn't have like a hook to me. It didn't have like that moment where I was just like, oh, I gotta finish this movie. I gotta find out what's gonna happen, until much, much farther in, when the situations were building and the comedy was starting to really roll. That like first scene in the boardroom where he's like, "I'm gonna fill the Monopoly." It was a weird place to start, I thought.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Yes, totally.
I think oh, sorry,
Abram.
No, what I was gonna say directly to that point, Timo, is that I felt a similar thing, but I felt that the film, for me, it really takes off when they come to arrest the family for having a communist conspiracy, because for me, everything before that, while there were some really nice sequences, it was all wind up. It was all, we're going to stack up our domino pieces so we can knock them down and cascade into a really excellent, and I didn't feel the end of the film as much. I actually enjoyed it, but an excellent, second act through the end. I think that there was a lot of, okay, we're going to put these characters here, and there's going to be some fun moments. Oh, they make fireworks. Oh, he's a business magnate. Oh, he's X, he's Y. But it isn't until that payoff that I really found myself compelled by the film. Before, it's like, okay, I'm feeling it. I see these vignettes. I see the theatrical influence, but I don't feel it yet. But when you feel it, then I think the film really keeps its momentum up.
It's almost like how your normal plot diagram is a triangle that goes up and then it ends shortly. But this one is more of like a equal halves of a point, and that point in the midpoint is when they're arrested, and then you get the denouement where the film really shines in its telling you why it showed all the stuff in the first half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I actually wanted to bring up, and Timo mentioned that this movie was based on a play, and you can feel it in certain parts. Of course, a lot of it takes place inside the Vanderhoff's house. It's one, plays are based in one location most often. But what this film does, I think, is take the foundation that's built on the themes of having a family and all of that, and fleshes it out into something a little bit larger. Because one thing I learned through my research of how this film was adapted is that none of the stuff with A.P. Kirby and his personal growth and his personal moments were in the play at all. They came up with those to give the other side of the coin more development. And I think that's why this film works so well as a film. It builds on that foundation, that the play foundation that it was given, and fleshes out the characters, uses the fact that they can cut from location to location to, intercutting to really build up the characters simultaneously. And you're able to get so many different sides of this picture and so many different areas and moments and situations that these characters interact in, that I think it really ends up building it stronger. For me, the hook of the film, that maybe you guys weren't feeling, but what I really look for in movies is the moment where I can connect to the characters on some sort of specific moment or, on some certain level. And I think it's when you cut first back into the Vanderhoff household and you get to meet Essie, and you get to meet Ed, and you get to meet Reba and Donald, and see Mr. Poppins interact with them for the first time. And you learn that they're making fireworks, and you learn that she's got a kitten as her paperweight, and she's trying to write these plays, and there's a history to each of these characters, and why are they there? Why is who's the guy who's the assistant for the fireworks? Mr. something.
Oh yeah, that guy. I know who you're talking about.
But he's been there for 9 years because he just wandered in and enjoyed it so much. And
he was the ice delivery guy.
Yeah, he was the ice delivery guy.
And same with Ed. He just came over for dinner and then just stayed because he enjoyed it so much. And I think it's as you get to be introduced to each of these characters and get used to their quirks and their wants and their needs, that I was really hooked. And I'm like, okay, so I want to see how these characters relate further in the future. I want to see what happens to them because this moment is so endearing, is so interesting, or so unique and memorable that why wouldn't I want to see what happens to them? And of course, there's other conflicts that are pulled in as Jimmy Stewart's trying to woo over Jean Arthur, and she's trying to balance her want for love with her love for her family or being herself. Like, there's just so many conflicts that are introduced that I was hooked from close to the beginning. I agree that it was weird to start in the boardroom with A.P. Kirby because he's not the main focus of the movie. But yeah, I think as soon as you start introducing the characters, I instantly am hooked because that's what I look for in the movie.
There is I think one of the most endearing moments you mentioned earlier about the guy the first guy they bring in, what was his name?
Mr. Poppins.
When they bring in Mr. Poppins and he's like, oh, I like make things, and then he shows him the little like bunny coming out of the egg, the Easter bunny, and they're like, oh, and they're like, oh, do you have more of these? And he's like, yeah, and they're like, all right, let's go to the workshop, let's go make it, and like that moment where it's just like. That in that essence, they captured the essence of that whole household in that one line and that one action.
Yeah.
And that was, I would agree that in that scene, I was drawn into just being interested and just liking, I just liked the characters in the movie. And by the end of the movie, I liked all of the characters. Everyone was like nice. And I mean, even A.P. Kirby, he turned out good too after old grandpa said that you don't get to keep your money when you die. Which is like the message of the theme. He said the name of the movie while they're in the jail cell. I was like,
yeah.
That's
and
where.
As for, sorry.
I was just gonna say, Abram said earlier about the film straddles that balance between being very clear about what it's saying and letting you take some liberties with how you view the theme. In that moment, it was very clear. Sometimes you gotta just straight up say what you mean by your film.
I agree that you like all the characters, and as for Mrs. Kirby, she'll come around eventually.
Mm-hmm. And you get that look on her face, she's like, "What are you gonna do to me?"
And then Mr. Kolikov whispers something to her, and she like smiles.
Yeah.
What did he say to her? What'd you say? He's got that classic
I don't know
Russian
if I
charm.
know.
Yeah,
I don't know if I want to know.
There's a very heartwarming core to the film, and I think that's what carries it. This sense of just like warmth. Okay, I like these characters. I like it. It's idealistic, but it's grounded. It's compelling. It's got all this going for it. But I don't know. I feel like there was just still a little something missing for me. I don't know if there was if I needed some more stakes. I don't know if I wanted a little bit more of a messy ending. I'm not sure. But as I'm sitting back and recollecting, I really love from when the police show up to when they come back, right? And through AP Kirby deciding, okay, you know what, I'm not going to go through with this deal. I like that a lot, but
Well, I have a. Well, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I just don't. I don't know if it's contrivance that's holding me up. I don't know if it's my want for things like the IRS plot line to have gone further, the Poppins thing to go further. I feel like I was just left wanting a little bit more out of the film.
Yeah. As for the ending, I do have a question, and this is just like my memory failing me a little bit. Did he say that like he's not going to go through with the sale of the house and everything like that? AP
No,
Kirby,
he didn't say that. They reinstated that afterward. Like when they were sitting down at dinner, it's like, oh, he's a good egg.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
he didn't,
that's right.
He didn't force us to sell the house. He like gave it back to us or whatever.
Even though I brought up that scene even though I just brought up that scene, I forgot it happened.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the things that might be hard for a lot of people when they're just getting into this movie, especially watching from a 2020 viewpoint.
21
is that this movie. Shit, it is 2021. Whatever, you know what I meant. But is that this movie is really different from structure-wise and character-wise from films that we're used to seeing today. I mean, I think this movie does a lot in terms of introducing so many characters, and we don't really get as much of that nowadays. But for me, it's the moments where you realize they are fleshing out each of those characters, and you get to see different sides of each of their personas. You get to see Grandpa Vanderhoff, who this character who doesn't have a care in the world, but loves his family and misses his wife, have this moment in the jail cell where he completely snaps, and he's like, he's been holding this back for 30 years, as he said. He hasn't had a moment like that in 30 years, but where it fleshes out all sides of so many characters. And I think, for me, that's the something else, is the fact that they're able to balance so many characters. Maybe, from my perspective, it doesn't really need that extra. I mean, it has the stakes. It has the fact that an entire neighborhood of people who have lived there their entire lives are going to have to leave if Grandpa Vanderhoff doesn't hold his ground. Diamond hands, boys, don't sell. God, I just dated our podcast.
Oh God.
No, but I do mean that when I'm saying that I think there are stakes. They're just kind of backgrounded because you're intended to focus more so on the personal connections and personal dramas between each of these characters. And obviously that's what's fleshed out the most, but I think they put their focus there because that's what works best in this kind of movie.
Yeah. It is a much more personal film, similar to another film on this list that is maybe too low for my liking, Kramer v. Kramer. It's a much more personal take on a Best Picture winning story, and I really appreciated that. And I think Tucker is raising a lot of great points here.
There is the balance you have to strike between a very grand, a very epic story. You know, your Lawrence of Arabia, your war change, you know, the tides of war change versus your personal, your human growth, that kind of stuff. And sometimes I think it is difficult, and I struggle with it in my own writing to like figure out how to make my stakes work, even in a smaller scale set story, which I like to tell a lot. I like to view big epic stories, maybe because I have a hard time making them.
Sure.
So yeah, I see what you're saying, Abram. There are plot points. The IRS thing came up, and I was like, ooh, I know why they dropped it, because if you continue that line, you write yourself into a corner so hard. I mean, I cannot think of how you get out of that if you like let that continue. Which is a shame, you know. I mean, maybe if would have thought about it long and hard for another year, they could have figured out a way to weasel their characters out of that kind of deal. And I mean, I thought at like the end, if I were a neighbor and I had like placed all my trust in Grandpa Vanderhoff to not sell, and then he did, I'd be kind of pissed. There was no like none of the ramifications were shown from the neighborhood at that. Especially after I showed up and bailed him out of jail. Like, holy crap, I would be mad. So you know, that's just some stuff. It's also a comedy. So I give it leeway because I want to have it's a lighter movie in terms of its like overall tone, even though it deals with serious subjects. And so just to maybe leave out some of the more serious stuff and focus on it is okay in my mind. It works. I don't have huge complaints, even though I noticed the missing parts.
Yeah. So for a short, or Abram, did you have something to say?
Well, what I was going to add, and I'm glad I didn't interrupt Timo there in the middle, is because he got to what might have been missing for me. Is I think Gramps is an interesting but slightly underutilized character,
Okay.
because there are some really interesting ideas of him being like this folk hero who everybody he's got like a gang behind him.
He's got his
Which is a
friends.
fun
Yeah,
concept.
the whole neighborhood.
Yeah, and I like that, and I think that could have gone further, like Timo was saying, and I mean it could have moved in the more serious direction, but I think even from a more comedic perspective, you could have played more with that. And I suppose I just found myself wanting some of the really interesting things that the film just brings up to be expanded upon, the ways that other elements were, the ways that things like the fireworks were so carefully carried through, the ways that the romantic plot lines moved. I just think that if there were a couple less characters so we could bore a little bit deeper into someone like Gramps, I think actually that Xenoblade reference, Grandpa, I think having these characters get a little bit more play for me would have made it feel a bit more satisfying.
Sure. If I may, and Timo brought up that this is a comedy, and for a little bit of relief from us deeply analyzing the themes and the dramatization of this film, what was everyone's favorite joke in this movie? What was your favorite comedic scene or bit or what? I certainly have one, so I can start.
Yeah.
Mine is the restaurant scene. The whole that restaurant scene, particularly the part where they have to leave, so he makes up the story about the rats.
Oh yeah.
And it just continually gets. He's like, yeah, a big one with a long tail. There were 6 of them that just ran by.
Oh, they're over there.
They're over there.
Yeah,
and
that
then
was
everyone
good.
starts freaking out, just because I think James Stewart and Gene Arthur. They have a great chemistry in this. James Stewart obviously has undeniable charisma, and this is an early role for him. And I just love that scene. I think that really embodies the charisma that they both have.
He still plays the Jimmy Stewart character to me. He's got his like, wow, yeah. But
There they go.
yeah. I mean, it works, and
That's real nice stuff.
it's funny, and it's amazing to see him so much younger. I'm used to seeing him in Vertigo and North by Northwest was another one he was in.
No,
Oh,
that's Cary Grant.
Oh, okay.
Rear Window.
He's in Rear Window.
Great
So
film.
I'm used to seeing him much older, and then to see him with the same acting chops as a much younger fellow is fun and interesting.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of my
I
favorite.
don't think we gave Jimmy Stewart. Well, you think I was going to say. I don't think we gave Jimmy Stewart enough attention in this. And honestly, I would say the performances as a whole. I don't think we talked about that almost at all. But I think all around, absolutely fantastic performances. Yeah. If I may, the wins and noms here: one Best Picture and Best Director for Frank Capra. That's it. Nothing else.
Man, let me tell you, that is some CAPRA.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I was trying to find a place to fit it in. I was trying to.
Yeah. It was nominated for supporting actress for Spring Byington, who was the mother, Penny Sycamore.
Abram,
Weird,
send me your
weird
vote.
choice.
It might have been like a career Oscar. Was she a big actress at the time?
She's been. I think she's in a couple other Best Picture nominees.
Okay, so it might have been like a career thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you, but it was also nominated for adapted screenplay, which I'd be curious to see what won over this. Nominated for sound mixing, film editing, and black and white cinematography. All solid, no complaints,
Yep.
but I wouldn't say they're anything super standout. But on the whole, I think some of the other performances should have been nominated. I think Lionel Barrymore, I think James Stewart, I think Gene Arthur, I think Edward Arnold as Anthony B. Kirby. I think all 4 of those are standout performances in the film. And all of the side cast as well. I really think there's so many performances in this that are so strong. But also, I'm just going to say my favorite joke is the chair gag. Is him sitting down on the rocking chair and just...
Oh yeah.
He has this sigh that he does every single time, and they keep coming up with reasons he has to stand up and sit back down. He's just trying to be polite. He's like, oh, God. And I just think that's hilarious.
I think my favorite joke is sorry, Abram, I'm gonna interrupt you for the 60th time this episode.
All good.
That the fireworks. I think the fireworks just work so well, and it's like such a weird, quirky, and yet believable thing. It works for me, and then the way that it plays off, and then the added, like the plot ramifications of it. They get arrested for like printing the communist propaganda and like that.
Yeah.
as like serious and as like a turning point the film The Arrest scene is, like it works so well as a joke, and like Kirby's trying to leave and they're like, no, you stay right there, like Buster, like you're not going anywhere, and he's like, don't you know that the whole like, don't you know who I am, and then the cops are just like very not understanding about it, which works, in service of the plot. That is a very satisfyingly funny scene.
Yeah. It also plays into the joke in the prison where everyone says they're Anthony P. Kirby because no one believes that he's there. And you also got the boys from journalism who are all sitting around waiting there. Oh shit, AP Kirby's in jail. And that just
And then like the scene where they jump the bailiff and keeping them out of the courtroom, and they like storm. It's kind of unrealistic, but I don't really care. It's pretty funny.
That's not really.
You got the printing montage.
Oh yeah,
I think.
Abram, go ahead.
While we're in jail, one of my favorite jokes is when Miss Kirby is accused of being a prostitute by the other people in the drunk tank. That's a great gag.
I'm a lady. Boy, they sure get around these days.
they're like feeling her
really like
robe
the jokes
and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I loved how that paid off sort of the class elements of the film and really just put that character in such an uncomfortable situation for her. I think whenever you can see Mrs. Kirby's visual disgust is always pretty amusing. But I also love, and I mentioned it earlier, the wrestling gag. I love how earnestly everyone plays that. Like, you just picked up a fat, important banker man and you suplexed him on your floor, and everyone's just taking it as like, oh, I'm just sorry. And
it's not the weirdest thing that happened.
No, and he just sighs and he's like, it's okay. It's played really well, and I think it speaks, like Tucker was saying, to the performances, because I think the earnestness of all of these people makes these sequences really work.
And the joke comes back later, which is you plant that joke and you pay it off, and that payoff you're like, oh yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so here's the thing, actually.
Abram, I need your vote.
All these jokes. Oh, he was trying to tell you that earlier. I think when we're going through all these jokes and we're just rattling off a bunch, I think, I've been saying this a lot. One of this movie's strongest suits, I think, is how the comedy pays into itself. It continues playing into more jokes they set up. Each one sets up another thing that plays into another thing, but then they play into the characters' personalities. They play into their conflicts. They play into the themes of the film. That wrestling thing is not only a joke that comes around at the end, but it also plays into AP Kirby was a wrestler when he was a kid. He's been suppressing that side of him. So when it comes back out at the end, you feel like he's really been realized as a character. He's opening himself up, and Kalinkov doesn't, like, he's Russian, and that sort of makes him feel out of place, but he's so charismatic and over the top that he fits right in, and he always barging in and saying, oh, am I in time for dinner? And like all these things that give the characters personality through comedy, but then support their personalities and support their wants and desires. And I think that's so cool. That's so creative. That's so interesting, and it really ties it all together in such a great way.
Another great joke I want to shout out is when the IRS agent shows up and everyone's just like is ignoring him because there's other things going on, and that also leads to his saying, you haven't paid taxes, you haven't paid income taxes in 25 years or whatever. He's like, I don't believe in it.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, I have a number for us. We've all submitted our votes. I've done some calculations. Are you guys ready to hear where we think this movie goes?
I'm nervous. We
have a placement number of 6.25. The mathematical average. So, a vote breakdown. Tanner and I are in the middle. We both put it at the same spot at number 5. Tucker put it at number 3, and Abram decided to vote for number 12.
Oh, I see.
Good gravy.
Dragging us all down, Abram. Come on now.
I will admit, I was actually first thinking of a similar place, Abram, but then as we talked about it, I realized a lot more about the film and about a lot more elements that I liked, and really actually how much it made me laugh, and how much I valued that. And so that ended up I gave myself another reevaluation as we were talking about it.
Yes. So 6.75, you say?
6.25. So just a little bit under.
Doesn't really matter.
The Hurt Locker. That's so it would go in between the Hurt Locker and Spotlight.
Damn, it's bumping Spotlight down another spot while maintaining the position of Argo and the Hurt Locker. Not a fan, but
could have put it higher then, Tanner. Could have put it higher.
I could have, but I didn't wanna.
Well, yeah, I was like, I thought it was better than Argo, but I was like, better than Godfather Part 2? Oh.
No.
Oh, easily.
So are we...
I'm not joking. There's no irony there.
We know that all too well, Tucker. We know that all.
We know that you hate fine cinema, Tucker.
Are we going to sit with that 6.25? Anyone want to make a pleading case for it to go up or down?
I mean, listen, Tucker.
I think I just have to say that I think this film being so high just off the bat, I think this is one of the first ones in a while where we've all come into it just praising it for the majority of the runtime. I think the fact that we're able to go through each of the moments and remember all of it so clearly and remember so many characters so clearly and talk about all these themes and be able to back that up with comedy. I think this movie is so strong in just being a film. It's entertaining and it tells you its themes and it makes you feel good when you come out of it. But then it also has a quote unquote darker side to it that makes you think about the world and think about yourself and what you're going to take out of it. And I think that's something that I don't get out of a lot of films, something that I can apply personally to my life. We got that a little bit from Parasite, a little bit from Gentleman's Agreement, Kramer vs. Kramer, a couple of them. But when you look at it on the whole, so many of these movies are stories about people that we will never meet, that we will never be put in these situations. They're so grandiose, and of course that's why they're entertaining. But I think being able to tell a story that is so compelling on a smaller scale sets this film apart from the majority of the other ones that we've seen. Mm-hmm. We could be one of these people in the future. We could realize because we watched this that we would rather do what we want and not have to fall into society. And I think that makes it so much more impactful that I have to put it higher, because if I can remember every single moment of it and I get something important out of it and it's super entertaining, that's what a best picture should be. And I think it is one of the best examples of a film that won best picture, to be honest.
Yeah. Tucker Hazel, or We Live in a Society, Tucker Hazel, the Joker.
Don't.
Abram, as the dissenting vote, could you be convinced? Are you convinced by Tucker giving that heartfelt tirade to bump it up a spot, or yes or no?
You know what? If that's the will of the people, I'm not opposed to it. Now that Godfather Part 2 is safely tucked up higher, I feel a little bit less at risk moving films around. But the way I see it, I just didn't find it very funny. I think that it felt like a miss, because for me, I really like theme, but the other thing I talk a lot about is feel. And for me, I felt the endearing scenarios, I felt the theme, but I don't know. It was just like, okay, I can step back and I can appreciate the construction of the script. I can appreciate the ways that the jokes are paid off. I can appreciate a lot of that, but can I feel it? I don't know. I can feel the themes, sure, but I think we've got a lot of films on here with interesting themes, and I don't know. It misses something for me. Like I said, I feel like if it had been a little bit smaller in terms of cast, we could have gotten a little bit deeper into the more interesting characters, because, hey, you make fireworks. That's interesting and it pays off in a comedic sense, but when we're spending time on the guy that makes fireworks in a walrus mask, or the guy that has the whole community behind him, right? I feel like if you leaned more into him, you could still have the comedy, you could still have the endearing thematic material, but you could have a little bit more to hold on to. And for me, I just felt like there wasn't a ton to hold on to in the end. But Tucker makes a good case. I don't know. I would be willing to move it up a spot if everyone else is.
To put it at number 6.
Well, here's the thing. It's at 6.25, so that means it's already at number 6.
No, 6.25 is we round down, so it goes in between. 6.25 is in between 6 and 7, and therefore it goes at 7.
Is that how we do it?
That's how we've done
always
it.
Has been.
Always has been.
Gun to the back of the head. Always has been.
The way that also makes sense if you're looking linearly at the numbers.
Yes.
To be fair.
It's after 6, so therefore it's 7.
Yeah.
I don't like it, but okay. I don't like these number deals, but all
Abram,
right.
if it feels any better, you'll only have to bump up the number by like 0.3, and then it'll be at number 6 instead of a whole place.
I know it. I can go to sleep at night knowing that I am only moved from a third of a place. And Tucker does make a good case, so yeah, I'm good.
All right, excellent. The film You Can't Take It With You from 1938 goes at number 6th place on our Quest for the Bestest list. Let's take a look at the graph. We haven't visited it in about a month, but I want to take a look because we're here at the top again. Top 10. I mean, we're going to get close to 30 before we know it. I mean, this thing is just getting big. All right.
It's getting longer and longer.
Here it goes. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh. Very, very nice. Okay. Excellent. And then the moment you've all been waiting for. We were waiting for the discussion personally because this is fun. This is a good time. Like to talk about this movie. But the real hype moment of the week. I got it pulled up. You ready? You ready?
I'm ready.
I always have been.
All right. I'm going to hit that spin wheel in 3, 2, 1. Boom.
Number 1 victory royale. Yeah, Fortnite. We about to get down. Get down where the... Just wiped out Tomato Town.
Yes. I took off my headphones expecting to be cringed, but instead I heard the sweet serenade emanating from my desk. And I had to put my headphones back on to listen to it.
Like a sailor to a siren.
Normally,
Want some more dating this episode?
Yeah, well, Tucker already did it. Why not? You know, why not?
well, you can see the number as well as I can. It's number 55. What movie is that, Tucker?
This is directed by Leo McCarey, released in 1954, starring Bing Crosby. We have Going My Way.
All right.
No reaction from the crowd. I expect that. I haven't seen the movie.
Have you seen it, Tucker?
Nope.
Well, then I don't expect the rest of us to have seen it. So
Yeah.
From 1944?
Yes. It's got an average of 3.2 on Letterboxd.
well, let's not let that color us. Let's not let that color our review.
This looks like it might be a musical. Yeah.
It is a musical.
Well,
We are on a roll with older movies, and we are on a roll with older musicals.
If I can, Timo, and do a little cross promotion here. This isn't the only movie review that we've got going on. So we are reviewing BVS this week. So at least I got that to look forward to. You know, I gotta watch this random musical, but at least I get to watch for the 7th time. BVS. Check the channel out. YouTube channel. We'll be reviewing some Snyder films too.
That's right.
True.
Abram is correct. We have a YouTube channel. We have a Twitter. Go check those out for more esoteric content about media that we like to enjoy.
Is that a compliment? Is it not? I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know the definition of that word.
Well, this film is certainly esoteric, for sure.
For sure.
I think we're all esoteric here.
In our own way. Thank you, boys. Thank you, fellas, for joining me. We'll be back next week to talk. What was that movie called?
Going My Way.
We'll be here. We'll be here next week to talk about Going My Way.
Abram's face.
It'll be an interesting time. We'll see if it can stack up to this one. This got pretty glowing reviews. The old You Can't Take It With You. But luckily for us, you can take Quest for the Bestest with you by downloading it on Spotify or rating it 5 stars on Apple Music. And so...
so good.
He did it. He did it.
The greatest transition known to man.
What a segue.
With that, I bid you all adieu. We'll be back next time. Peace. My track is rolling like a train headed southbound on a Wednesday afternoon.
Take me to your Xbox and play tonight today.
Shut the fuck up.
Not late. I really want to
chug with you. We can be pro Fortnite gamers. Pro Fortnite gamers.
Night gamers. Let me close this tab on.
Abram will sit there and unironically listen to Black Bear and Lil Pump, but then say we're cringe when we sing Fortnite songs.
Unbelievable.
That's some. I'm gonna be Sigmund Freud out here. I bet he fucking had sex with his mom when he was a kid or something.
What?
How are those related? Explain.
I don't
to
think
me. Sigmund Freud came in my dream.
Sigmund Freud
came in me.